3, 2, 1, snap. We don't. Oh, hi, Lisha. How's it going in Bangalore? Really? So also, like, from what I hear, India is not doing so good, 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 good. But nice. Oh, good move, good move. Okay, fair. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, staying away from the news at times like these are very, very good idea, I'd say. Toronto, Canada. Well, we're kind of in a chaotic system of trying to get people vaccinated, but like not very organized with that whole process. So that's going how that's going. Um, yeah, at least we have vaccines, and there are people I know who are starting to get them, which is nice. Some young people, mostly old people, have been vaccinated. They're trying to open up vaccinations to younger people by the end of May, so that'll be nice. Currently sitting at May 7th as we're recording. 12:06 in the afternoon. We're not raining yet, but there's going to be rain soon. You can see it in the sky. It's pretty cold still. Yeah, I know. I know. Like beginning of April, we were literally on the balcony in a tank top, and now it's May, and I'm wearing wool socks. So, you know, that's going how that's going. Oh, wow. That's wonderful. Oh, it's okay. It'll clean out the toxins. Just a little bit. Soon we should get some nice warm weather, I think. I hope. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I don't know what I can trust. Alright. Aw. I like them though when they're getting ready for winter and they're all big and fat and they're like gathering all their nuts and running around like roly poly little balls. That's my favorite type of squirrel. It's a roly poly ball. Mm-hmm. All right, shall we get into it? Talk about some rich people and financial privilege today. What a topic for the ages. All right. So, I guess what kind of got us onto this topic before we hit record, because we chat before we hit record, um, was this idea of this vaccine discrepancy and like why here in Canada we have vaccines that are getting rolled out, and in America and other countries that are considered first world countries, and where you are, there's no vaccines and there's no oxygen and there's so much more struggle going on, despite the fact that in India is where some of the vaccines are being developed. Yeah, Yeah, it's almost like you guys should be like sneaking some away for yourselves, being like, yeah, we only made 100 today, but like actually just like sneaking 50 off to the side for yourselves. And I mean, like, obviously in different numerical proportions. And like, what is money? You know, such an arbitrary marker on the value of a thing. And like, especially when this thing is responsible for a human life. No. Yeah, like it's kind of wild when you reach a point of like I like was chatting with my dad and my grandparents, and my dad is getting to the point where he wants to retire soon, and my grandparents are retired, and my grandparents say like, "Oh, if you had $1 million, you could retire. You know, like that would be so comfortable." And my dad just like looks and he laughs and he goes, "No, $1 million doesn't get you anything these days." And like, what the hell is that? You know, like there was a time when you could retire for $100,000 and you were the richest person. You know, like that would get you by just fine for the rest of your days, and you might even have a small inheritance to leave to someone. Now, a million means nothing. Like, how do we get to that point? And like, just like, what is inflation? What is money? What is everything? No. Yeah, it's 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 messed up in like such a weird way of like, yeah, if the 1% was, even if they were just ever so gracious as to be like, okay, that's fine, I can give away some of my wealth to give these people a paycheck so that they can, you know, essentially take the paid sick leave um, that they need so that they can get a vaccine so that they can continue to go to work and, you know, provide a service that we all need and we all appreciate. That would be so useful. And that's what it is. Yeah, that is really what the system is, you know, we've evolved, so it's no longer survival of the fittest. It is survival of the richest, and it's the richest on an individual level. It's also the richest on a, like a corporate level, and richest on like a country level. You know, my country is doing better than your country because my country is considered a richer country. Like that's so messed up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which like I mean, that it's interesting too because like that sort of has, I mean, I'm not gonna say always. I mean, probably always, but I'm no history buff. Um, like been the case, it's just gets so forgotten about, right? And I mean, for some people, it's very not forgotten about. It's very on the forefront of their minds. But something like, I'm in Canada and I'm privileged to be in Canada, and I think of it as like, oh, I can have a good education and I have good healthcare and whatever. But if I was born in Yemen, like what is my state of life? They have literally been in a humanitarian crisis for so long. They're in the middle of wars that, these people, just because you're born there, doesn't mean that you deserve to have that situation. And, like, countless refugees from countless countries are, coming from places, and those are, it's like, oh, that person's coming from a war torn country, and that's what you think of as coming from a bad place to live in, to be in like a bad situation to have started in. But now we're seeing with this virus that's global, it's worldwide, and like yet again, countries are considered to be another bad place to be in, and you didn't choose that. It's just the situation that it is. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It like finally seemed like an equalizer. Like it was like this thing that didn't give a fuck who you were because it was beyond that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's like a virus is it doesn't give a fuck. It acts how it wants to act. And now, yeah, what we're really seeing is the human impact on a virus like this, right? Like the human impact is how we treat each other, how we treat other countries, how we're treating our own neighbors, right? Like my neighborhood that I live in is considered a better, like lower risk area than my sister's neighborhood. Yet for some reason, my area got a lot more vaccinations than hers did. And people had to stand up and step up and say, hey, we actually are an area with a lot more community living situations, a lot more people living a lot more denser. We have a higher homelessness rate, so we have a lot more people in shelter systems, and then a lot more people. Just the interactions are totally different. I was laughing about seeing what I coined the Peloton mom. It's the yoga mom, but heightened. It's the yoga mom with even more money, and like that disparity in even just within the city of Toronto is apparent. How much more it would appear the how do I phrase this, like how much more it seems the government cares for people with more money. It's like, oh, you can have this vaccine, it's chill, you've been working from home for a year and you don't need to leave, you can drive somewhere, you don't need to take public transit, you'll get a vaccine. That person who's been walking everywhere because they're scared to take public transit, they might not get the vaccine. And like now they are vaccinating those hotspot areas, but then you like that's really what our two situations are blown up on a bigger level is why am I getting, I mean, I haven't been vaccinated yet, I haven't been eligible, but why am I more likely to get a vaccine much sooner than you? Is that my country's a richer country, and that's really fucked up. Especially when your country's developing them. Like, that's so fucked up. which doesn't make sense from your own government standpoint or my understanding of, like government should care for its people and want its people to do well and to thrive because that's how they do well and they thrive. Governing body is in charge of people. What are you going to do when all your people fall ill? Who are you going to govern? And let's be serious. When we see the history of how different countries treat each other, it's never the nicest. Like countries are fucking dicks to each other. So, like to a degree, like you kind of got to watch out for yourself because who's watching out for you? I don't know. Yeah, survival of the richest, indeed. Mhm. Yeah. So did you kind of have that mentality of like, well, it's already bad, it can't get worse? Or were you like, well, it's this bad, but how much worse is it going to get? Okay, so kind of like if we got through that, we can get through more. Mm-hmm. So this, you just kind of were like, well, I knew the inevitable was coming. How Okay, true. That was going to be my next question is like, how have you been handling it? Mm, fair. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And I do think it's interesting, and I'm gonna like sound like an asshole here because like also I am kind of an asshole. Um, but like for me, I keep waiting for it to hit me, and like to be honest, I don't feel like it is. So like maybe it'll hit me afterwards. Like maybe once the world becomes normal, I'll be like, "Oh, right. That's what the world's supposed to feel like." But I was working this week with my sister and her boyfriend and they have both been like, pretty affected by things and they're like, oh, like, they both were able to get their vaccines and he's like really like super pro vaccine, like trying to convince all of his friends, everyone around him to get it, which like yeah, for sure, like I'm also pro vaccine. um, but it's interesting, like they are so much more like, oh my gosh, I want the world to open again, like I can't wait for it to open again. But I've had the privilege of like, I lived with a roommate at the beginning of um, quarantine, at the beginning of everything when lockdown happened. I was living with my same roommate who like we had become friendly at the beginning of me moving in, and then we kind of drifted apart. And then when lockdown happened, like I actually felt like I like gained a new friend there. Um, as we just became a lot closer. We were hanging out all the time, every single day. Um, and then from there, I moved into my van because I was living in London, Ontario, where cases were pretty low. I was working my job where I had access to everything I needed to live comfortably and safely in my van. I still had sanitation, like I was still cleaning everything, but like really, it felt just as comfortable as and safe as living in my apartment. And then from there, I moved into Toronto, where I moved into yet another apartment with two new roommates. So, like, my living situation has continually changed. And I also describe myself as an introvert with no friends. So, like, me not having these social connections, like, feels pretty normal. So, I keep being like, wait, but isn't this what life has always felt like? And then I remind myself that, like, no, it's not. You're just used to having a limited social life because normally I work 2 or 3 jobs at a time, or when I was in London, I was going rock climbing once a week, I was going swimming once a week, I would go on really long walks. Like, me and you would hang out, and like, I was pretty used to, occupying all of my time with things, and now I've just occupied my time with trying to start a business. And like, I'm just good, I think, at occupying my time. So I've been very, very fortunate to not feel like I've been too affected, though I think it will be interesting to see when Toronto opens up. I think it'll kind of be shocking to me to realize that, like, oh, this is what this city felt like last time I lived here, but I haven't lived here for 2 or 3 years. So it feels like this is what Toronto is, if that makes any sense. I do think so, and that was something I hadn't really realized until having a conversation with one of my roommates I live with now. Because when I was living in London at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was news constantly all the time being super dark, my roommate had said, like, I refuse to let that play in our house. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I know that it's there, but we were staying inside. We had someone else do our grocery shopping for us. We would watch, like silly sitcoms or dumb movies. We would do a lot of crafts. We would play with her dog. Like, we pretty early into things, we made masks for ourselves and we would wear them when we went out, even if other people thought that we looked like foolish fools. But we were like, this is what makes us feel safe. We were washing our hands, washing our masks, doing everything, and kind of like, this is what makes us feel safe. But we never really watched the news. Then when I moved here and I was talking to my roommate, and she said that at her house, almost 24 hours a day, unless they went to sleep or pretty much unless they went to sleep, they had the radio playing, and it was constantly talking about coronavirus and updates and the world and Toronto and everything like in her house. So she and both of us experienced the same thing. We were about to open a show, and both of our shows got closed. Differently, she was about to graduate from university, but I was about to finish an apprenticeship, which was supposed to get me into the union. So we were both at these like exciting times in our career that immediately got stopped. She was thankfully able to still graduate from university, but that changed for her. And so for her, it was a super, super dark time. Whereas for me, I was like, this is great. I can work on these knitting projects I never do. I put a whole mosaic in my van counter. I was like, this is fantastic. I like invented a shirt pattern from scratch because I finally have time to do that. Like, I was only seeing it as like all of this free time to work on these crafts that I loved all the time. Whereas like, even my family, like, they were watching the news constantly and they were like, this is so dark, this is so scary, this is so horrible. And I was like, is it though? Like, what if you just read a book instead? Then it's just like an extended weekend, or it's like early retirement, like it's like taking a staycation, like obviously not a vacation, but like there's, it was going into the summer, the weather was nice, we had a balcony, so we were on our balcony all the time. I started a vegetable garden. So for me, it was like, pretty enjoyable, to be honest. And I've talked to someone else who I know who's like, yeah, me and my husband like finally had time and we could like go hiking and enjoy nature the way we never have because we always had to work our whole lives and like we're super busy this whole time. So it is interesting that like the media we had consumed, because it was so different, we experienced everything so differently. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my one of my uncles got a little annoyed with me because he was like, now especially more than ever, like you should be watching the news, like you should be staying in with this. But honestly, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back and watch. Like I was watching, um, we were talking the other day about how I check the weather pretty much every day, my Weather Network app, and they have little videos there. So sometimes it's a video of like a deer eating a leaf and it's cute, but like they were having these coronavirus updates and like doctor conversations and stuff. So I'd watch those in the morning, but it just kind of felt like I wasn't getting any new information. The only new information was that more people were sick than they were last time I looked. So I just kind of didn't really understand like what, to be honest, I would gather from listening to this. It was like we still don't know anything about this virus. More people are sick. People were like sending me conspiracy theories or maybe real theories. I don't even know on like where the virus had come from. And I was like, I quite frankly don't give a shit where it came from. It's here now. And like, I'm sure that medical science and other science cares where it came from. But for me, someone who has absolutely no impact on trying to end this virus apart from doing my part, staying home, washing my hands, wearing a mask, staying away from other people, keeping my personal bubble small. Like I was living in London, Ontario. You, one of my best friends, had just gone back to India, so we weren't hanging out. One of my other best friends there, he was very much keeping to himself, so we weren't hanging out. And all my other friends were my coworkers, and work had been shut, so I wasn't hanging out with anyone. Like it just, I still don't really understand what I would have gained from watching that media and that news coverage because it was just everyone against the virus. And what am I learning? You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, yes, it was ignorance, for sure. It is ignorance. I still don't watch the news. I still don't look at that coverage. But like I said, I I don't really know what I gained from that. Like, I checked to see if I'm eligible for a vaccine, and I'm not. It's not going to affect me personally as an individual if I find out that construction is now closed. Like, I get those updates, I hear those updates, I see those updates. That comes to me, or I can seek that out if I want to know, okay, can I don't know, go buy more potting soil at the hardware store? No, I can't. All right, that's fine. My plant will stay in its pot. Like, I don't know. I think it is interesting too, this like news cycle. And, they kind of, from what I've been told and have gleaned in my time in this planet, is that the 24-hour news cycle and the way that things are being reported pre corona really started up with 9/11, and the impact that that had on the world, and the impact, I guess, on the world, yeah. Which 9/11 happened when I was in grade 1. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I thought it was Remembrance Day because I was in grade 1, and it is 1 month off from Remembrance Day. You know, they're both on the 11th, and I was, or I guess September to November, 2 months off. But I literally, that's what I thought was going on. I thought it was Remembrance Day. We were looking at pictures of firefighters, and I thought they were soldiers. I didn't know what was happening. But that news cycle and people being so consumed by that news and that media, I think is interesting in the way that, like, the 24-hour news cycle was very much kind of the same dread and despair with Corona, but with 9/11, it was, and I mean, I'm saying this as a Canadian, but it was very much seems like it was us versus them. Whereas with Corona, it was us as a collective global versus it, a virus. You know? Like it wasn't pitting people against each other until now. Until now, we see this financial disparity has caused this, like, crazy vaccine disparity and this crazy healthcare system disparity. But I don't know. I guess that's sort of the one comparison that my brain makes is just like, well, if we're all at least on this united front against the virus, then that's good. We all have a common enemy, except like the anti-corona people or whatever who think that it's all a myth, which, like, literally how?
The anti-vaxxers.
Oh, my audio got messed up. I think it's good now. Yeah, I don't know. No, I just feel like I've been, like, rambling and smushing my opinions into you. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say most comfortable. Mm-hmm. 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 I think in a way, like, I think depending on how people use it, it can either be a driving force in a negative way or in a positive way, right? So, like, if, like, my roommate, you, or her family, whatever, you had this radio playing all the time and it's only ever broadcasting negative information, negative perspective, negative news, then you automatically have that around you because it's in the background. Even if you don't think you're listening, you're hearing it, right? Or if you don't have that playing and you're only using technology to connect with your friends who you can't see personally right now, then you're going to have a very different experience with the technology as a factor in things, right? Like I know people, or I guess I know one person specifically who comes to mind who does not own a TV. I don't know if that person has all of these streaming platforms, or maybe they watch the news on their laptop or their phone. Like, I don't know how they're getting their information and their updates and stuff, but I know that that person does not own a TV. So they can't turn on CNN or Fox News or, good or bad news sources, is what I'm trying to say. Um, they just don't have that. I guess they do because phones and laptops, but it is definitely a different impact on you depending how you use it, which, I mean, you even see with music, right? If you only ever listen to music that has like strong, like I can take on the world sort of messages, then that's how you're going to feel. But if you're only ever listening to music that's sad heartbreak songs, then that's how you're going to feel, because you're just kind of echoing it back to yourself. Mm-hmm. I think you I think you need to allow yourself to be happy so that you can be more beneficial in your helping. Because if you totally wear yourself out by just being worried and having these negative thoughts and whatever, then you can't be of the most help to someone. But if you are still informed, but not to a level that you're constantly, unable to sleep, for example, right? Like that is definitely something that has been affecting people during this, is this inability to sleep and to get the rest that their body needs. Then how can you expect to perform on the same level that you need to be able to help people, right? I don't know. I think also, like, I definitely am coming from a place of extreme privilege right now, because when I got laid off from work, I was then pretty quickly able to get government assistance for a few months. Then I was able to get another job, which, based on where I lived and what I was doing, felt very safe. Like with the virus, I wasn't scared at all. Lots of sanitation protocols in place, and like we wore our masks if we felt the need to. I was working outdoors. I was able to distance quite a bit. And then once that job ended, I was able to go on unemployment insurance. So I've currently been living on unemployment insurance and working my own business that I've, kind of been starting, been working on, whatever, where I stay at home and I knit and I crochet and do macrame, which are my favorite hobbies in the world. And now I'm trying to monetize them. So, of course, I'm speaking from a place of financial privilege and general privilege, because I don't have to be going to a coffee shop, a job I would not like doing, and interacting with hundreds of people on a day, getting, my exposure rate so much higher, having to take transit every single day. Like, because I don't have to do those things, I can feel a lot more comfortable. And because I don't have to do those things, I don't have to watch the news as often, because I don't need to really necessarily know what are the exposure levels in the area I live. Because I'm home all the time. I can easily go a week without leaving my house, unless I'm going to the mail to drop something off, in which case, a lot of the time, I can just go to the mailbox. I don't even need to interact with a mail clerk. So I can go, and I also have the, mental capacity to survive a week living on my own. some people can't do that, and I have roommates, so I don't even need to survive a week living on my own. I can still interact with my roommates. I can still Skype with you because of the benefit of technology. I can still chat with you once a week, this week twice a week. So, my financial privilege is the reason that I'm so comfortable right now. Without my financial privilege, I would definitely be in a very, very different situation. Like, to think of homeless people right now, not only do they not have housing security, but the government was, here in Toronto at least, was taking down and destroying the housing that was being provided to them by small organizations of people. And on top of that, they're basically all businesses at a point in time said, no, we're no longer accepting cash, which means any cash or even small change that people were carrying, that they would, potentially, you see someone homeless, you give them some money. It's a nice thing to do to help that person out. Now suddenly, I don't carry any cash on me. So if I pass someone homeless, all I can think is, wow, I literally don't have anything to give you. So maybe I'll give you a granola bar because that's what I have in my bag. But it's not like I'm going to hand you my debit card and say, here, have all of my money. Like I don't feel comfortable giving someone all of my wealth, which I think is fair. Yeah, yeah, how are they supposed to work their way out of their own situation if now they're not even getting the help that they used to be getting from the generosity of strangers, which, like, to be honest, has slowly, I'm sure, been getting less and less as more money becomes, ones and zeros on a screen, and less money becomes proper physical cash. So it's all about financial privilege. It truly is. Yeah, survival of the richest. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the wealth gap that we already see is just going to get bigger and bigger. Like, there's already a wealth gap between countries, and this is just going to further divide if these governing bodies aren't willing to step up and say, holy shit, I see that those people are struggling and I have the ability to help them. Because we already see that. We already see that there have been countries that for years are stuck in bad situations and no one's helping them. Yes. I'll keep my eye out for all the singles in my area. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if planes are landing here anymore. Jeez. The world is burning. The world is burning. What a dark episode. I think this has been our darkest one yet. No. Maybe next episode we'll try and make it cheery. No, I think your point might be more important. Which is like so ironic because I take such shit care of myself and literally use my sister as a therapist amongst other people. Next week, perhaps. Alright. It's been nice chatting. Same time next week. Bye, Lisha.